All right, welcome back to the Sean Trey Show. Tonight I have an absolutely awesome and old friend tonight. Now, can you tell people who you are and what you do?
Hey, Sean, thanks for having me. I'm so
For
happy to
sure.
see you,
Yeah,
even though
right.
it's
It's been too
virtual.
long.
It's awesome. My name is Nasambu, and I am a singer, musician, and I also am in the healing arts as well.
This is how we met. We met
Mhm.
when we were both in Los Angeles studying the healing arts, which is pretty cool.
It's
Now,
really cool.
how long have you been? How long have you been doing music?
Music, it's one of those things I've been doing it pretty much my whole life since I was a kid. I just loved to sing. I'd be walking around everywhere just singing la 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 all day long.
Oh,
And as I continued to join different choirs and groups, I found teachers along the way that gave me a lot of private professional instruction on how to
nice.
maintain my voice and how to really make the most of the gift of singing. So I'm really thankful for all my teachers along the way that have helped me. And I've
Right.
played with a lot of different groups, different bands. I have my own band also called the Mystic Nomads, which was
That's
formed
right.
in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now that I'm based in Nairobi, I have Mystic Nomads also version here in Nairobi, and
Oh,
also
really?
yeah, I have a Kenyan branch
Nice.
of the
Little
band.
expansion. That just plays into something that I was going to ask you. Like,
Hmm.
one of the things that my wife and I have had this discussion because people think that musical experience is kind of the same all over the world, and it's not. And it's so different. Like, in the U.S., one of the things that I grew up with is we grew up with church choirs, and
Hmm.
everyone would go to church and you would sing at church. And,
Yeah,
and I'm not going to lie, a lot of those church choir songs were really boring,
yeah.
but yet people sang and they felt, and then there was a lot of like praise songs that was more fun. When I got to high school, there was a lot of praise
Mhm.
music, and that was really, it was bright and positive. But then when I came to Vietnam, it was very different because they don't have choirs. That's not a
Mm.
thing here. So people
Mm.
don't grow up with that. People grow up, but yet they have this really crazy tradition. I think it's crazy because it's not my experience, and I label it as crazy. But it's their very cultural experience of like karaoke, and so people
Mm.
grow up with, like, we have this giant speaker with a built-in amp that, is a karaoke speaker machine, and we'll go and start jamming on some nights, hook it up to our phone and just rock out karaoke. It's a very strong
Oh,
tradition, but
nice,
that's
nice.
how they come up with music. And
Uh-huh.
there's much more of an individual ballad, but yet much less collaborative singing. It's not, it's different. What was it like growing up with the music experience in Kenya? What's the music experience there like growing up?
That's really interesting what you mentioned because actually I grew up partly in California and partly in Kenya,
Okay.
just back and forth most of my
Was
childhood.
there a big contrast between those?
Yeah, there was a big contrast, but generally there's a lot of group singing that happens in Kenya, a lot of choirs, and it's a very community oriented kind of activity. Um,
Mm,
but even when I was growing up in California, I also was part of choirs there quite a
nice.
bit. And I used to also sing in the church choir. That's how I learned
Right?
how to harmonize and sing with
Yes.
other people. And yeah, so I've kind of grown up with that tradition of
Mhm.
singing in groups and really feeling a lot of sublime experiences of
Right?
singing with other people that have really shaped my appreciation and my love for music. So yeah, but also I remember going out with some friends in San Francisco one time to a karaoke kind of
Nice.
venue, and it's a big deal. I know in the Asian culture, there's a lot of that karaoke and singing together, and but it's
Yep.
very much about one person really getting their voice out there.
Yes.
So
It's like that
I,
one track.
yeah, I love that too. It was a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
It's different. It's different. And then like that's
Yeah.
where it's interesting, but um you just hit a great point. Something that I really love that you just said, that you talked about the harmonies. And that was one of the things that
Mhm.
like I'm a baritone. And
Okay.
so as a baritone, we don't get there's not that many baritone solos, you know?
Hmm.
And let's be real, for men's voices, the tenors are like, "Hey, we are the cool people." And the baritones, we're in the back going, "Yeah." But
Yeah.
my vocal line in choir was always a harmony line. I never
Mhm.
It's never a lead line. So as a baritone, you're always singing harmony lines.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so now when I sing with my wife, I'm
Mhm.
just trying to pop up with harmony lines. It's quite easy. But I love that, and you
Okay.
don't think about it too much until you see a group like Pentatonics.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Yeah.
what how do you bring a lot of harmonies into your music that you play with now?
Yeah. Actually, I do a lot of harmonies in my recordings.
Nice,
Yeah, because I just love the sound of the many voices and all the
right?
different parts. It brings a different feeling. Brings a special feeling. But in my live performances lately,
Yeah.
I've been doing more acoustic
Oh, nice.
and performing with guitar and drums, percussion, and things like that. So it's more of just like an in the moment kind of experience without so many harmonies.
Well, that leads to, you just pointed out another thing that I know about you that I really would love to talk about.
Hmm.
You're an accomplished guitarist. You play beautifully.
Oh,
Now,
thank you, thanks.
when did you start learning guitar? How did you get into the guitar?
The guitar, it was an instrument that I just was so. I always loved listening to guitar music, especially like as a teenager. I just loved hearing acoustic guitar and even just listening to instrumental guitarists.
Yeah,
And it really inspired me. So one day I was like, I really want to buy my own guitar and I'll just teach myself as I go along. So that's how it started. I bought
nice,
my own little starter pack, that came with the bag and the
nice.
tuner. And
Those are the
I
best.
bought a couple of books, like Teach Yourself Guitar. And that's really how I just started just playing little by little. And really, it took time because
Yeah,
if you play the guitar, you understand that there's this point that you have to get through this threshold of pain to be able
yep.
to really play freely as a beginner guitarist.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just like so painful on your fingers.
Hmm.
But you have to keep pushing and pushing through the pain. And then at some point, it just
Yep.
stops hurting anymore and you can play forever.
My daughter,
So,
I've been trying to get her on the ukulele, and
mhm.
she's pressing down on the strings, and I'm like, she's like looking at me, she's like, "But why? But
Yeah,
why, Daddy? It hurts." I'm
it
like, "It's gonna
hurts.
sound good someday." I feel horrible. I was like, "We'll wait till you're a little bit older, and then you can feel, why it would be important for you." But we've been
Yeah.
teaching her piano, which is great.
Yeah,
Now,
piano is a little easier on the fingers.
it is, but I love the guitar because I grew up with a lot of that. My dad, the different sides. My dad was English, and
Hmm.
my mom was American. So my dad, we grew up listening to the Beatles and ABBA. That was
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
those were his jams because he was from the UK. That was kind of what he was really into. And versus my mom,
Uh-huh.
it was like Johnny Cash, the Beach Boys, and
Uh-huh.
she was from California. She was much more Americana type stuff. And
Hmm.
And so we would listen to Johnny Cash all the time, and just guitar rhythms and such. So
Yeah.
I love it, but I'm still really bad at guitar. I'm a campfire guitarist. You are amazing. Now, how old were you when you started doing your first performances?
I started off just, in church choirs and things like that. We used to do
Nice.
um, childhood shows and things like that. But for me, actually starting to get paid for singing, that happened when I was somewhere in my maybe around 11 or 12, around there
Nice.
is when I got hired to sing the national anthem for some athletic event. And that was the
Well,
first
that's
time I got
awesome.
my first paycheck for singing. And I
That's
said,
really cool.
wow, maybe this could really turn into something.
Right?
So after that, I ended up singing in a lot of different groups, like I said before, and we did a lot of performances throughout my
That's cool.
teenage years before big audiences in the thousands and stuff. And that's where I got over my stage fright.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Thousands, into the thousands.
yeah.
Wow.
Community concerts.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, when did you start writing your own music? When was this? When did you feel this urge to kind of go out and start creating your own music? Because you write most of your own music, right?
Yeah, I actually do. I love writing the music, and it's something I think it started because I used to love writing poetry in the first place. And so
Nice.
my poetry was just something that I felt creative, a little creative writing process. And it just
Hmm.
kept evolving and evolving. And as I learned to play the guitar, it helped me to structure chords and melodies together. And that's when I started writing my own songs and sharing
Mm.
them with people. And then I think also I think that's the main way that I started writing was through my poetry.
That's awesome. It was a
Yeah.
funny thing that I heard the other day. I was reading this joke thing, and it was like, and it was talking about rap, and that wasn't making fun of rap, but it was like,
Mhm.
what's really, if you think about the essence of like a rap battle, it's two guys getting really angry and yelling poetry at each other. Like,
Yeah.
we don't think about music as poetry, and it's beautiful
Mhm.
poetry. But like there are some people who have the ability to string together words and put out a story, a true story through a song that's just magical. I think about like Bob Dylan. The man
Yeah.
can put words together. That's amazing.
Hmm.
Who are some of the people that inspire you as lyricists? Who are some of the artists that really have inspired you coming up?
Um, I would say some of the great singers that have really inspired me with, especially with lyrics and also with
Mm.
just unique sounds.
Okay,
Uh,
talk to me about that. Who's got a sound that you like?
Miriam Makeba from South Africa, she's
Okay,
really inspired me with a lot of her traditional music and the way that she
nice.
also infused jazz and pop into her traditional sound. And also, I was heavily influenced by Celine Dion, who
Nice.
is who also sings in French, and I used
Yes.
to love even trying to learn how to sing French,
Right.
just so I could understand, try to understand what she was singing.
Right.
Yeah, and also
Such an amazing
let's
singer.
see, there's a really cool group called Zap Mama in Europe,
Zappa.
and they do a lot of a cappella and kind of a
Oh, really?
fusion of Afro-European kind of
Cool.
music. And then, of course, like Janet Jackson,
Oh,
Alicia
nice.
Keys, and
Right.
there's some other singers. Because when I grew up as a kid, My
Yeah.
parents and grandparents used to listen to a lot of different kinds of African music.
Okay.
So I ended up listening to a lot of music that I didn't really understand the words to,
Hmm.
but I appreciated the feeling of the music. So for me,
Okay.
a major singer that really influenced me from my childhood was Salif Keita, who is from Mali,
Okay.
and his music is
Mali.
so
Okay.
orchestral and symphonic,
Really?
and the
Wow.
melodies, the way he sings, is just out of this world. And he makes those traditional instruments sound so orchestral. I just love Salif Keita's music.
You were giving me when I edit this, I'm gonna have to put down a list of like I'm gonna be writing all these down to check them out because one of the
Yeah.
challenges that I think, and this is something that I thought about in this podcast, and
Hmm.
I really wanted to focus on is one of the things I don't like, and I don't like it in the film industry, I don't like it in the music industry, is how American centric entertainment
Hmm.
is. You know, and I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
I love streaming now because like biggest
Hmm.
show in the world right now is out of Korea. You know,
Yeah.
Squid Games, and like everyone's caught
Yeah.
up in it, and I'm like, but that's just one country. There are all
Right.
of these countries that can be making film and music,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
every country has a really unique vibe. I remember some in one of my early music classes at school, not in college, it was a music appreciation class, and and everyone knew that we were going to be listening to all the European composers and conductors, but our professor
Yeah.
was really cool, and he was really versed, and he's like, all right, we're going to listen to stuff from around the world because this is a very very Eurocentric like music appreciation class. That's
Hmm.
it's not a great example of what's going on everywhere else. And I remember some of the stuff we listened to. We were listening to like some music from like the tribes, the indigenous people up in like Alaska. Really interesting.
Wow. Uh-huh.
Um, Listened to the singer Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, amazing
Oh, yeah.
singer,
I
right?
love his music. Amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, mine was blown. Just
Oh,
on
yeah.
probably one of the greatest vocalists that has ever lived, and
Yeah,
so many
for
people
sure.
in America do not know who this person is, and that's
Right.
crazy to me,
Yeah, yeah. But I'm thankful that I spent so much time in California, and really there's so much diversity over
right?
there. And there's a lot of exposure to different cultures and different types of music. And of
Yeah,
course, Latin music is
it's,
so
yeah.
huge in California. So I
Hmm.
love Latin music and
Same.
Mexican music and Brazilian music, of
Yeah,
course, is just
yeah,
just does so much for my soul.
yeah. I feel you on that.
Yeah, so it's nice to have that interest, to hear how different people make music, and then it's something that also inspires.
Yes. When I moved to Vietnam and living in Vietnam, there was a thing that I realized as I began to learn the language that the fundamental way that people here view the world is different.
Yeah.
That people around the world in different languages, whatever language it is, see the world in a slightly different way. And it's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
beautifully different way.
so
And
true.
one of the things that I thought of was like, we were just talking about Brazilian music, and I think back to Brazilian music, and I just think of all of my Brazilian friends and
Yeah.
how a culture and a tone can come through a music,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know. And so it's beautiful like that. Now, tell me about some of these. I would love to know more about this singer from Mali and the singer from South Africa that you talked about. What were
Mhm.
some of the themes that they sang about?
Um, Someone like Miriam Makeba from South Africa,
Yes.
she became a very pivotal figure
Hmm.
during her day towards the end of apartheid, because
Okay.
she was a singer that spoke out against the apartheid system that was happening in South Africa, and she actually got banned from her country for several decades. And she ended up traveling the globe as a musician, as a singer, and sharing
Wow.
about what was happening in South Africa to people. So she's saying a lot about her culture. She's saying a lot about different cultural events that happen, and like warriors dancing and preparing for some event, and children playing in the rain, and things like that. So
Beautiful.
she really tapped into some of their traditional cultural songs, and then she also wrote a lot of really interesting music about her travels, different places in the world that she lived. And someone like Salif Keita, his music is very cultural music,
That's
and
beautiful.
talks about like family values and things like that. So that's how, for someone in the West African griot tradition,
Hmm.
there is a line of people that come through a family in West Africa, and they're called the griots, and they're the ones that tell the stories of the community through song and through music. So Salif Keita is part of that lineage, and so a lot of
That's
his music
beautiful.
is very culturally specific. And he also, in that griot tradition, they sing praises of different key members in the community, and things like that. So I don't really understand everything that he sings,
Yeah.
but I just love the way it makes me feel when I listen to
Right.
it.
Well, there's two things that I want to pick at in that because there's two things that you just said that were really interesting. The first is I was talking to a composer last night on my podcast, and we made this interesting point about talking about tone, but there was something that popped into my head that I didn't mention, that music for a long time has also been the way people have kept track of memories of the culture, of the
Yeah,
people.
yeah. Uh-huh.
The storytelling, because people didn't have books, and it was hard to think about, like, there was a tradition in Europe of like a group of people who would remember or loosely memorize the stories of like the Iliad and the Odyssey, which is mind
Uh-huh.
blowing to me
Yeah,
because it
yeah.
was these are such a huge books, but
Right.
there would be a musical tradition to it. They would
Mm-hmm.
sing them, and they would be, it would be more like music. And in even the early theater, early plays were poetry based. It's like you look at Shakespeare and stuff, and there's like
For
this
sure.
rhythm to it that was, for making it easier to sing. But storytelling and music have often gone hand in hand, and
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah, it's just amazing. And it's special because that's what makes music unique. From
Yeah,
each person has their own story to tell in their own special way.
right.
Mhm.
That's such a good point. And like the other thing you talked about was about like the kind of the mood and like how you might not understand what someone's saying, but
Yeah.
with music, like you can feel it. Um, you put on some samba music, and it's just
Yeah.
like you feel it, you
Mm-hmm.
know, you feel it. There was a great band from Mongolia, and it was
Mm-hmm.
Mongolian like metal. And
Wow.
these guys, it was just like, and I was just like, it's one of the coolest things I've ever heard because they're singing their language. These guys are all dressed in like partially in traditional clothes, but partially they're like Harley Davidson like type outfits, and they're all riding their
Wow.
motorcycles.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, but you listen to it. I have
Uh,
no ideas what these guys are saying,
yeah.
but I'm feeling it. It's just like
Like,
that's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah. It's the beauty of like really appreciating other
Mhm.
people's perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure.
Now, with music, um, do you have any? What types of projects are you working on right now?
Right now, I am in the middle of a really exciting. new
Oh,
project.
do tell.
It's still a secret, but I'll give you a little
Okay.
hint. And it's really more of a fusion kind of sound with electronic kind of DJ,
Oh,
jazz,
oh,
Afrofusion, and soul elements. It's really
that
really
sounds
exciting. I've
literally
been in
awesome.
the studio. Yeah, it's really really so exciting. And the thing that really excites me the most is that
Mm,
as a singer, I really I have such a deep appreciation for music as a
mm.
spiritual force in the world, you know.
Yes.
And it's just the
Yes.
way that we express it. It's different for everyone, and it has different effects. But for me, the one that I really really love about being an artist and being a musician is inspiration. And
Yeah.
when you feel inspired, it's the most amazing thing
Yeah.
because there's all this creative energy, and when you're working with other people that also have a lot of creative energy and inspiration, then it just magnifies the the power of the music and the power of the experience of creating the music,
Yes. Yes.
because there is an extra push, you know, that gives you extra life and excitement for creating. And so for me, inspiration is just like the most wonderful thing. And
I'm with.
it's
I think
hard to
music is
explain,
magic.
you know,
No, no. I
but
no.
it's been
It is
really
hard to explain.
inspiring.
Yeah. But like, we studied in the healing arts, we studied acupuncture and East
Yeah.
Asian medicine, and one of the
Mhm.
concepts they talk about is chi,
Yeah.
and the idea of this force with us. And there was a really interesting thing when I got to study for a period of time. I got to study capoeira, and
Oh, yeah.
didn't go very far, but I got
Uh-huh.
to study it. And one of the things that I loved is that the Brazilians had this idea of, like, when they were doing capoeira, the axé,
Yeah.
the the axé, and I was like, well, what does that mean? And they're like, it's, and one of my friends tried to explain it.
Yeah.
And when they're playing, the music creates this, almost like this bubble, like this powerful magic. And when
Mm.
the music is strong, the
Yeah.
game is strong. And that's like, and I was like, oh man, that's like,
Mhm.
that makes sense to me. It's like, it's almost like a magic vibe. And you know,
Yeah.
I I've been to a concert where I finished the concert and I came home and I
Mhm.
felt electric.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like it was still in me. And so I,
Yeah.
what do you feel about that? I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, for sure. I love that feeling that you get. I've had that experience a number of times in different settings, and also singing with other singers. There's like
Mm,
this point where you can feel so connected to each other and to the music that you're creating together in the moment that you lose
yes.
track of time and space, you know.
Yes.
And I've had this experience of feeling like you're just floating, you know, in the
Yeah.
music, inside of the music, and it's just such a magical feeling that feels like you're closer and closer to the divine essence of
Yeah.
all that is, you know.
Yes.
So I know it sounds
Yes.
crazy, but
No,
it's
no, 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 no,
music
no.
is more. I think it's much more than we even can imagine it to be.
Yeah.
But we have the gift, you know, of being able to create it and to
Yeah.
experience it. And so it's just something that I just love that experience of feeling inspired, you know. So
Did you ever see the movie The Red Violin?
no.
Oh my gosh, you have to see. I can't tell you too much without,
No.
but it's a story that
Uh-huh.
follows a violin across like four different continents, across about 300 or 400 years. It starts in
Mm-hmm.
the fifth. No, maybe maybe I think it's at least 400 years. So it starts in the 1500s at the making of this violin in Italy, and then it
Uh-huh.
moves as the violin goes into Switzerland, and the violin ends up in Austria, and then it ends up in England, and then it ends up in China, and then it finally ends up at the auction block. And I can't remember where it's auctioned, but it's this amazing movie. Samuel L. Jackson's in it. There's quite a few great actors in it. And
Okay.
there's one scene, you have to look it up. It is hands
I
down my favorite
will.
movie.
I
Favorite
will for
movie. You
sure.
will cry. It is
Oh God.
such a tearjerker. You will cry. I swear you will cry.
I
Um,
know.
as the movie progresses, there's this one scene where there's this violinist in England who is a virtuoso,
Yeah.
and the music takes him close to ecstasy. It's like he says, this takes me to this absolute point of bliss, pure bliss.
Yeah.
And I'm not a great guitarist, but I have had a moment where I am so into a song that
Mm-hmm.
time starts to shift,
Oh, it's amazing.
and you feel it. Now I love that. So you're preaching to the choir, but you got to
Oh
watch the Red
yeah.
Violin.
You get it. You get it. I'm gonna go find that movie, man.
Well, on that note, where do you go for inspiration when you're putting together new projects? Where do you turn?
Um, it's so mysterious
No,
because I'm a person that I like to go with the flow.
I like that.
So I just like the natural kind of organic way of creating. So
Yeah,
there are definitely times when I feel no inclination to create, and I
yeah,
don't. Yeah, I just let it go. If I'm not feeling it, I'm not there. So it's really something that I wait for. I
yeah.
wait for it to come, and it can be any moment, like driving in the car and all of a sudden this melody hits, and then I've got this, but the lyrics are just all coming down, and it,
Mm,
it just feels like I can write a whole song in a few minutes, and that's what I just wait for that.
that's
But
awesome.
I don't really try to chase it. I just let it come when it wants to come, and then I just like to go with the flow in that way.
That's beautiful. It's kind of like, well, I mean, we had to study a lot of like Taoist philosophy in acupuncture school, and the idea of the way without the way, and that when you
Mhm.
can empty your mind and just pay attention, sometimes the inspiration comes. Not sometimes, often it does, but you have to get out of the way of this at times, you know?
Right. You got to get out of your own way sometimes.
Hmm. Who are some of the or what would you, what, not genre, I'm not trying to put any boxes in here, but what type of music vibe does your music have? Is it jazzy? Is it rock? What would you, how would you describe your music?
I would call it's a fusion of jazz and soul and
Nice.
Afro Latin music. So it's
Nice.
somewhere in that mix of sounds. It's just all encompassing. It's a soul music because you got to
I love
feel
that.
it with your soul. You got to
I
make
love
it
that.
with your soul. And
Yeah.
and feel that passion for life and for music.
Nice.
So that's really it's just the soul music.
It's beautiful. Now, when you were younger, did you get any professional training? Did you train with guitar? Did you go to teachers, or did you teach everything to yourself?
Guitar, I honestly pretty much taught myself. Once in a while, I would have a guitar friend that would maybe give me a couple little tips, like here, try this, and I would work
Nice.
on it. But mostly, I've just practiced on my own when
Nice.
I felt the inspiration and just kept pushing and pushing and working on it. And it's actually for the way I see this whole instrumental playing of instruments is something that it's a lifelong process. So
Yes.
I wouldn't really call myself an accomplished like guitarist or a guitar master, but I can play the songs that I perform, and those are
Okay.
the songs that I make,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that comes from my soul expression, you know.
Nice.
But it's something that, for me personally, I continue to surprise myself, and I continue to evolve
Yeah.
as a musician, like as each year passes. And before I know it, I'm playing something that I never would have imagined myself playing,
Right.
and then it becomes more of a freestyle, and that's the exciting part of music, is that it's a
Mhm.
never ending story.
Well, and that's the thing that I think that everyone talks about music in a couple different ways. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there are, you meet a lot of people who are like, trying to make it. I want to make this as my career. I want to make it. And yet then you meet people who it's not about the money. It's about creating music. It's just about
Yeah,
making music. It's about, I have this story, I have this song in myself, and it has to come out.
right.
And though I understand I have to pay my bills. Everyone has to pay their bills. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you are so focused on making money, at the same time you will often forget that spirit, that
Yeah.
soul.
Uh-huh. But that's the beauty of music, is that it
Yes.
can be different things to different people.
Yes.
So for some people, it's purely entertainment. For some people, it's purely a business venture,
Yeah.
and for other people, it's about being famous. And other
Mm.
people,
Yeah.
which I discovered a lot about in my studies of Indian classical music, that it can also be a path to a spiritual ascension,
Yeah.
for
Yep.
others. So it's really how it's so versatile in that way.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's so true. It can be so many different things, and yet and yet it's always about conveying this beautiful emotion, this beautiful, soulful. Um, there are very few singers that you see singing that don't have some type of emotional response to the music, that don't
Yeah.
have some type of. My wife's mother was every year, and for me too. This happens every year, one time a year. I love living overseas. I love living outside the U.S. But
Yeah.
there's one time a year that it's tough. And that's
Hmm.
Christmas time for me.
Oh
And
yeah.
when I hear Christmas songs, man, it's tough. And it's not about
Hmm.
being in the U.S., but it just makes me miss my family, my
Yeah.
mom, my dad, my brother. And it's amazing that if I'm doing other stuff, it doesn't tag me, but the
Hmm.
second I hear that Christmas song come on, it's just like, oh, I gotta call my dad.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I see that for my, but if I put that same Christmas music on for my mother-in-law, doesn't do anything. But if
Yeah.
I put on
Mhm.
the Lunar New Year music, she'll be
Oh.
just pouring tears, thinking about, like, I
Oh.
wish my son was back, because my brother-in-law lives in Paris, and so there is this powerful emotional response to music that's
Oh
so
yeah.
amazing.
It is. It really is.
And it's transcendent. It's beyond any individual culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is
Now,
way
if
above
you
any culture. Yeah.
right
Mm-hmm.
now, if you could go back in time and give advice to your younger self about not change anything, not saying change anything, if you could go
Uh-huh.
back in time and give advice to your younger self about your musical journey, or just
Mm-hmm.
your journey, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh goodness.
Right.
That's a tough one. I think I would just say, just keep following your heart
Mm,
wherever it leads you. Follow your heart.
I like that. Follow your
Yeah,
heart. Because
follow your heart and follow your bliss.
follow your bliss. I love that. What does follow your bliss mean to you?
To me, following my bliss is something that I can attribute to this writer who is very, very powerful writer of mythologies,
Oh, nice.
and it's really this concept that in life there's you can feel so many things, and there's different experiences that will give you different consequences. You
Nice.
know, but when you start to tap into your own inner nature and what really ticks for you, you find you get to a point where you can get to a point where you experience bliss,
Mm,
and it's something that once you experience it, it's the
mm,
most magical and surreal, and it's something that you want to keep pursuing. And that idea of bliss is just, it's a feeling of wholeness, it's a feeling of oneness, it's a kind of a euphoric feeling, but it's not
mhm.
overwhelming. It's something that just gives you that that it's a calmness, a knowing,
Yeah.
you know. Even if you don't know everything, it's a knowing that it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. And
Yeah.
in the moment, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Life is beautiful. And so it's just about following that feeling of the beauty of life, and the beauty of
Hmm.
life and the bliss. And if you do that, life can only become more blissful.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Follow your bliss. I feel like in life, we follow many things. We follow
Mm-hmm.
stability. We follow desire.
Mm-hmm.
We follow stability or perceived stability. Because I'm
Yeah.
going to say that stability is a phantom. I don't know if it even ever exists.
Right.
But so rarely do people remember to follow their bliss. And it's the most important thing.
Yeah. It's true. It's true.
Like, let me give an example. My daughter was born, and I blink, and then she's 5. I blink
Mm.
again, she's going to be, 15. Blink
Yeah.
again, and she's going to be, moving out into the world.
Right.
And the other day, she was just, I just reached over and I grabbed her and I pulled her over and gave her the biggest hug. And she's like,
Mm.
what's up, Daddy? And I was like, I just want you to know I love you. And she looked at me and she's like, I love you too. And she leaned her head in and she didn't rush the hug. It wasn't like she was running off to play a game. She just leaned in and she hugged me. And the hug lasted like 30 seconds. And with my daughter in that moment, she just gave me this hug that was just like,
Oh.
everything's going to be okay. And then
Yeah.
she got down and she went back to playing and I went back to editing videos. And I was just like, but that love stayed.
Yeah. The feeling. Yeah.
Feeling. And I feel like great movies, great music have the ability to help us feel that because you can't
Yeah.
always have that hug yourself. But when
Mm-hmm.
you hear it in the song, when you see it on TV,
Yeah.
it stirs the soul.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. So beautiful.
And that's where I feel like music is magic.
Yes. Yes. All the way.
It
All
is.
the way. More
So
than we can imagine.
you have to introduce yourself no longer as a singer, but you're going to just say, I'm a magician.
Yeah, I have a guitar friend out here. He's a
Really?
really, really amazing guitarist, and he calls it a musician.
Oh, I love that. A
He's a
musician.
musician.
I love that. That is beautiful.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's great. No, no, I want to ask you a couple last questions. Now, if you are feeling down, what is
Hmm.
your a go-to song that you'll turn on to just bring yourself back up?
Hmm. That's a good question. Um, I think it usually depends on whatever I'm just feeling in the moment.
Mm,
Sometimes, if you're feeling down and you listen to sad love
yeah.
songs, it does
Hmm.
something. It does something because it helps you to just like dwell in that moment and feel like
Yes.
the sadness, and then you're identifying with a bigger story, you know.
Yeah.
And then there's other times when I may be feeling low and I'm like, I just need some really nice gospel music, you
Right.
know, that can just really take me into the stratospheres and feel that feeling of people singing together in
Yes.
harmonies and praising the creator, you know.
Yes.
And then it's I think it's an emotional, you know, it depends on the emotions, you know how we do in in
Yeah.
Eastern medicine.
Yes. Yes. Right.
There's all these different emotions, and so like what can help to balance if you're feeling angry or if you're feeling happy, too
So true.
happy, or too
Right.
sad.
Yeah. Right. I didn't think about it
Yeah.
like that. That's well played. Well played. Brought it full circle on me right there. That's awesome. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if you had Aladdin's lamp, what would you wish for? If you had a wish for life, for music, for anything, what would you wish for?
um you know what I had this thing that I've been writing and kind of meditating on it in my mind, that what if one day was like 1,000 years,
Oh wow.
and 1,000 years was like one day, and if the entire world just for one day decided to right all the wrongs for individuals, you know, the
Yeah.
individual, just right the wrongs that they know about in their lives, and try to be totally harmonious with everything and everyone around,
Wow.
just for one day. Just imagine the harmony that could just glow and glow on the
I love that.
entire planet if everyone just did it for one day. It could
Yeah.
be the start of 1,000 years of harmony and bliss and balance. So that's my little
No. That
Aladdin genie.
you almost got me to cry
No,
right there. I
yeah.
was just like, damn. Man, man, I was just thinking about just yeah, just wow. That is beautiful. Well, I wanna thank you for coming on tonight. This was a beautiful conversation, my friend.
Thank you so much, Sean. It's been great. It's so wonderful to chat with you and
And
catch
catch
up and
up, right?
talk about
We
these
will have to
great
do this again.
things.
Now, when you finish that project, I would love for you to come on and talk more about it and share it, because that sounds really special.
Sure, sure, yes. Actually, it's a whole new entire project and group and everything, and
That's
we're
awesome.
just getting into the mixing and mastering stage, so it's
Nice.
coming soon. So
All
I'd
right.
love to come back and share more about
When it's
it.
ready, come back on and then we can preview some of the stuff and talk about it. Awesome.
Great.